Greetings, dear viewer, and welcome to Purposes Crossed, where I hope that people who are called by Jesus for different purposes cross paths and exchange ideas. Today, we continue with our series of devotions on the Psalms, and we will look at Psalm 6 in this video. Psalm 6 is the first proper psalm of lament in the book of Psalms. The superscription identifies it as a psalm of David, whereas Psalm 5 was meant to be accompanied by wind instruments. Psalm 6 is composed for stringed instruments. Perhaps David wanted his voice available for this psalm of lament. The psalm, though short, gives us some important insights into our relationship with God. First, though David is clearly suffering, he is able to reach at the end of the psalm where he declares that God has answered his prayer without confessing any sin. This should warn us against accepting any view that links suffering automatically to sin. While it is quite certain that sin does lead to suffering, this does not mean that all suffering is a result of sin. However, there are quite a few people who proclaim a health and wealth message, which is really the blasphemy of our times. I pray that God would free his people from the enslavement of such satanic teaching and liberate them into a true relationship with Jesus. Second, verses 6 and 7 seem to hint that David's suffering was not just a flash in the pan, but something almost chronic. We are too quick often to promise that joy comes in the morning, and that we are unable to support those who truly suffer. To claim that joy comes in the morning is to claim knowledge of what God is doing in the other person's life. And unless I have been given a very clear message from God, I would not presume to know what God is doing in another person's life. I barely have a clear idea of what God is doing in my own life. Hence, to presume knowledge that is private should be something that we do not quickly jump to. Third, the psalm moves very rapidly from lament to testimony between verses 7 and 8. David gives us no indication about what happened to enable him to confidently declare that God had answered his prayer. And I think this is providential. If David had told us what had happened and how he knew God had answered his prayer, I would be willing to wager that very quickly someone would come along insisting that that was the only way to know if God had answered our prayers. We need only think of the excesses of some traditions of Christianity to realize that most of those excesses have roots in a genuine work of God. Putting these three lessons together, we understand that God's people can suffer for long periods of time, and not because they have sinned. Rather, the human race has fallen into the sin that first ensnared Adam, and as a result, we experience broken relationships in which people actively attempt to put snares in our paths and make our lives difficult. And it seems that David had experienced this for a reasonably long period of time. Yet at the end, he is able to say that his enemies will be put to shame and will be struck with terror. His enemies probably thought that God was against David and that therefore David had no way out of his despair. And they probably took advantage of his despair to make him sink even deeper into it. But when God delivers David, they realize that they had been wrong about him. In other words, this meant that they had spoken unjustly about God, and to accuse God of injustice is a very grave thing. Quite naturally, David concludes that when God delivered him, his enemies would tremble in fear for having spoken and acted in ways that accuse God of injustice. Despite his despair, there is one line that is an absolute beauty, containing a gem of humor that we might miss either due to familiarity or because we don't expect humor in Scripture. In the middle of the psalm, David sings, "Turn, O Lord, save my life. Deliver me for the sake of your steadfast love, for in death there is no remembrance of you. In Sheol, who can give you praise?" It is as though David were telling God, once I die, I can't really praise you. So, if you want my praise, you better keep me alive. Such wonderful, tongue-in-cheek, ironic, and bold prayer is, I think, what made David a man after God's heart. He had no place for timidity in his prayer. He even goes to such a great extent of cashing in on his relationship with God to entice God to deliver him. If only we had the same boldness, courage, and frankness when it came to our prayer. Thank you.